So, hello and welcome back to another thrilling adventure in Kalmandor. This week, Teldrassil. Teldrassil was the name of the capital of the Night Elves of Darnassus. Teldrassil means crown of the earth in Darnassius. Darnassian? Ooh, good job, me. And it was the home of the Night Elves for not centuries, not even all that long. It was created shortly after the Third War, but it served as their home, their base of operations. It was a giant world tree that had all, like an entire ecosystem up in its branches. And unfortunately, Teldrassil was lost to us. But we can still go and at least see a little bit. But before we can see what happens in the past, we have to know what happened when it all burned. Unfortunately, then she came.
Secure the beach. Prepare to invade the tree.
Why? Why? You've already won. Only innocents remain in the tree.
This is war.
No. This is hatred. Rage. Windrunner. You were defender of your people. Do you not remember?
I remember. A fool. Take her! Run! Life is pain. Hope fails. Now you understand. Don't grieve. You'll soon join your loved ones.
I grieve for you. You've made life your enemy. And that is a war you'll never win. You can kill us, but you cannot kill hope.
Can't I? Burn it. Burn it!
And with that, Teldrassil burned. But we can still go back in time, and we can still see the glory that was Teldrassil back in the days before Sylvanas came. So if you want to do that, you just go and you talk to Zadormi. She will also show you that Warbringer's cutscene anytime that you want to watch it, just in case you're not angry enough at Sylvanas. You can go and watch it again. But yeah. Now, back in the old days, there were boats that went from Rutherin village all the way to Aberdeen, with the cataclysm that has not happened. The boats, the docks have all been destroyed, at least in Aberdeen. There are still docks in Rutherin village, but now those docks have portals to the places that used to have ships. Kind of a sad thing in my mind, but you know, it is what it is. Now, when you go in, the very first thing that you are going to go through, or go to, is Rutherin village. Now, if you're a Horde player, and you would like to visit Teldrassil back in the past, you can actually fly up the side of Teldrassil, and that's how we're going to go in this time after we explore around the base of the World Tree a little bit. One thing that I found out that was really interesting was the reason the World Tree back in the past just looked like a broken stump when we know it's a towering tree is because of the game engine. It just did not have the graphics to be able to actually see all the way up there. Also, another thing that I just found out when I was researching for this video, I don't know why I never came in here, but there are baby hippogriffs because Rutherin village is actually the place where all of the hippogriffs are hatched, or at least used to be. We've got a Cenarian lore keeper here. She's watching the eggs. And if you go upstairs, you can talk to this guy here, Airless Amber Sky, and he's going to tell you all about how the hippogriffs came to be here. So you can say, tell me more about these hippogriffs. And he tells you that druids are sensitive to the plight of all creatures, and that there is a gnome named Kurgle Cranklehop who leads collecting the eggs and has them sent to Rutherin village. Or at least she used to. Because unfortunately we do always have to keep in mind that when you are back in the past exploring around Teldrassil, you're exploring a place that doesn't exist anymore, which is very depressing. So yeah, I also found out about a couple other kind of neat little things. Now, one thing I didn't explore was that ship because there's nothing to really explore in, but I didn't realize that here at the base of the tree is an abandoned Furbolg village. There's no NPCs in it, but I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, you've got just some little Furbolg houses. It's kind of an interesting spot to just camp out and live your Furbolg dreams, I guess. Just one of those interesting little locations. Who knows, maybe there was a quest tied to it at one point, but if you see, it is right there on the map, just in case you want to go and check it out. There's a couple other little almost campsites that are down there around the routes, you know, just little inlets. I did not, and I probably will later, I didn't go around underwater just to see if there was anything cool under the water, but I haven't heard anything about cool stuff under the water. That doesn't mean that there's not stuff, so if you've ever swam around the roots of Teldrassil and if there's anything cool, let me know in the comments below, because I'm really interested now. Also, I love the fact that there is a waterfall coming off the top of a tree. It's just one of those neat little things, you know. You can just sit right here at the base of the waterfall and do your ninja training, I guess. Or, alternatively, Alliance or Horde, you can follow this waterfall up all the way to the top of Teldrassil, you come out at the Wellspring River, where you've got some little thicket elementals that are just sort of roaming around. Not exactly friendly, but then again, a lot of things in World of Warcraft aren't exactly friendly. I do love the fact that this is an entire ecosystem. It's an entire world, but it's in the top of a tree. And thinking about it, when you quest around Mount Hyjal and everything, it didn't have that same feel. There was really nothing else like Teldrassil. Also, all over the tree, you're going to be able to find moon wells pretty much everywhere. So if you need to make some moon cloth, that is a good place to do it. And I don't know if this bear tree here is going to grow up and be a bank someday, but that is almost the exact same as the model that is the bank inside of Darnassus. Also, just something I thought that was really cool. There's an entire little enclave of harpies that are back in the back corner over here. And I had to land in one of their nests because I was like, are those giant bones? I have no idea what those bones come from, but they're pretty darn big. That looks like the biggest human skull I've ever seen. Just a little bit too big to actually be human. I thought it was kind of interesting, so I stopped to look at it. Now, there's also furbolgs kind of everywhere. They're all hostile here, unlike some of the furbolgs that we will meet later on as we explore Kalmandor. And they have their own little cave systems up through here, up in the cleft. And they're also just over the hill from the Night Elf starting zone of Shadow Glen, which I thought was very interesting. You gotta wonder if they're planning an invasion or something. Knowing furbolgs, they probably were. Not that they can invade anymore, but But yeah, up here at the top we've got a little cave with some little furbolgs in it. I had to go in because I couldn't remember if there was anything here other than a bunch of druids of the Talon, which you would be rescuing for one of the many, many quests in this starting area. Also, yes, I cannot stop myself from looting. I don't think I can ever actually leave loot lying. It's just not in my nature. So now we're going to head down into Shadow Glen, where things are so much nicer. They didn't used to be nicer. The very first character that I ever made in World of Warcraft was a Night Elf, and this was not very long after the game had launched, and everything in the starting zone was bound and determined to kill you. And if you were a terrible player like me, you died very, very quickly. I gave up on WoW for a long time after that. But these days, it's a little bit easier. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's the simplest in the world, because I'm sure that you could still get yourself killed, especially if you go back here into the Shadow Thread Cave, where it's spiders everywhere. But, I feel like the game has become a lot friendlier to new people. Here we are at another moonwell. Like I said, you will not have any trouble making some moon cloth if you have the reagents for it, which you might not need to make it for any equipment purposes, but if you wanted to just say make it because of transmog, I would totally do it. There's still actually a lot of transmog I need to make. Now, the furbolgs, as you can see, have taken over Starbreeze Village. You get sent here by a lot of the questing in Dolinar to kind of clean it out. Kind of too bad. There's some nice houses back here. Unfortunately, you would have to be killing off furbolg left, right, and sideways to make use of them. And if you've been watching this series for very long, you know that finding houses, since Blizzard has not given us player housing, is one of my passions in the game. And there are actually several very good little houses in Teldrassil. More of them are apartments, but there are actually a couple of little houses. There's a little house in Dolinar. There's some nice little tents. I do love this over here at Lake Al Amath. You can have your own little campsite. I mean, you have to watch out for some of these thicket elementals, but look at this beautiful lake. You got a couple of boats on it, and, you know, really good fishing. So we're gonna keep on trucking, going every place that I can think of, because it's been a long time since I really ran around and just explored Teldrassil. It's one of those cities where I feel like even before Sylvanas destroyed it, you never really saw too many players there. You usually saw people at Ironforge or even Stormwind, but the Exodore and Teldrassil were always a little bit more forgotten about, which is too bad because they're absolutely gorgeous. Now up here we have some more Furbolg villages. We've got some interesting branches. I remember back in, I think it was the Burning Crusade, that there was some quest that sent you out on these branches. I don't remember much else other than being sent out on the branches and I think falling to my death. But if you remember anything about that quest, drop it in the comments below, because I don't remember anything except going out on those branches and dying. I feel like it was maybe going after maybe Staghelm, maybe Archdruid Staghelm, but I don't remember for sure. Nowadays, there's just a bunch of corrupted satyrs. There's a little bit of the branch of corruption. We've got a little remnant of Xavius here, you know, just spreading just that last little bit of corruption, because unfortunately Teldrassil was corrupted up until the Cataclysm. So now, really cool thing that I feel like I've been to before, but it had been a very long time. There is a very cool, just little peaceful lake, and it's right here behind the Temple of the Moon, inside of Darnassus itself. There's nothing here. I feel like there should be a house here. Like, I just feel like this is probably, if there were a house here, I would imagine that it was probably Malfurion and Tyranda's little romantic retreat. But it's still a very, very cool spot. But yeah, you can see right there on the map, it is directly behind the Temple of the Moon in Darnassus. And there's even a neat little path that pretty much leads you the back way inside of Darnassus. That is yet another thing I did not know about until I was researching this video. So yeah, if you ever wanted to just have your own little back door into Darnassus and your own little secret fishing retreat, that is the perfect spot. There's a couple other little lakes here, another moon well up there, cute little fawn here, just hanging out, doing little fawn things. Now, we're going to finish up before we head into Darnassus itself with just the last little bit around Shadowglen and Dolinar. If you've ever played a Night Elf, you're very familiar with both of these areas. But I figured for thoroughness purposes, we probably should check them both out a little bit closer. So here is the Shadowglen. Now, another fun fact, I have died so many times by falling off of this. Your final quest before you leave the Night Elf starting area takes you up here to report to this guy, and then you have to get back down, and I can't tell you how many times I fell off of that. These days, I'm pretty sure that he gives you a little wind walking buff, so you can't actually die off that tree, so that kind of tells me I'm not the only one that died off that tree. As you're heading to Dolinar, don't forget to stop and talk with Zen Foulhoof. You'll do some questionable quests for him, and then later on you will punish him appropriately when the druids here in Dolinar discover what you've done. It's a fun little quest chain. Now, I did promise you a house, and as long as your character wouldn't mind sharing, there is a very nice little house here. It's got an herbalism trainer and an alchemy trainer in it, so, you know, if you ever need training, it's a good house for a little alchemist. Again, another moon well. This cooking trainer, or actually the cooking supply lady, I'm pretty sure has some recipes that you can't get in other places. I know that there is a recipe that you can only get in Darnassus that is in Rutherin Village. It's just a very, very basic recipe, but I'm a completionist, so I'm always looking for that last little thing. So, as you can see, yet another inn. I do love these inns because you've got the 2 beds downstairs, and then you've got a nice spacious 3 bedrooms upstairs. Always a top-notch thing. And I've learned that a lot of times there's apartments in the tops of these trees. Also, if you're playing a night elf and you would like to get your very own hawk owl, this is where you would go ahead and buy them. It's also where you can, I think, learn the pet battling skill before heading to Stormwind, where you would get it normally. So we're going to head upstairs and just check to see if there's an apartment in this tree. I don't know why I've always been so obsessed with finding houses in World of Warcraft. It's something that I started doing back with my old guild, because everybody always wanted their own house, because I play on an RP realm and everybody wants a house. So, yeah. And there is an apartment at the top of this tree, and it comes installed with your very own guards, so that's always kind of cool. Now, as we leave Dolinar, we're just going to trot along. We're going to poke our noses into the Benethel Hollow, again full of furbolgs, so not quite as nice as I'm sure the druids would like it. Not a good spot to nap, which seems to be what the male druids enjoy doing. You know, I always used to wonder, because you see blood elf children, and you see children all over Suramar. You see troll kids, you see kids of every stripe except night elves. You almost never see night elf children or babies. I know of a couple of them. In fact, I'll be showing you one here soon. But I always used to think that maybe it was because the night elves had immortality, and an immortal race would probably reproduce very slowly. But the more I think about it, the more I am convinced that the reason that night elves have such a low birth rate is because most of the male druids spend all of their time asleep. Now, you can drop it in the comments below. You can disagree with me. If Blizzard has actually said a real reason why the night elves as a species don't reproduce all that often, let me know, because the only thing I can think is because all of the night elf men are snoozing all the time. That is the only explanation I can come up with. Like I said, I used to think maybe it was because they used to be immortal and immortal races would reproduce much more slowly than the mortal races, but I'm not sure I buy that anymore. So here we are at the Craftsman's Terrace. It is where you can do all of your crafting. There's a hotel here, and there's also a couple very nice apartments. You know, if you just want a basic little apartment right in the city, granted you have to time travel to go to it anymore, but there are several of them. In fact, most of the crafting buildings have little apartments up above them. So if you didn't know that, now you do. From the Craftsman Terrace, we are going to head over here to the Howling Oak, which is the home of the Gilnean refugees, or at least it used to be, back in the days before Darnassus burned. The Gilneans and the Night Elves have formed a very tight bond because the Gilneans are afflicted with the Worgen curse, and pretty much that's kind of the Night Elves' fault. Now, if you are playing a Gilnean or you are exalted with the Gilneans, you can come here and talk to Astrid Langstrump, and she will sell you a nice little horse. I really do like the horse models for the Gilnean horses. They are very, very nice. But you have to either be a Worgen or you have to be exalted with them. Now here's where all the refugees are. If you chat with them, they will chat back with you a little bit. Not a lot, but that's okay.
What's your story?
Also, I just absolutely loved, the spelling wasn't right, but Jamie Harriet made me smile. Because if you don't know, I read a lot of books on my channel, and I read the entire James Harriet All Creatures Great and Small series, and seeing a character named Jamie Harriet just definitely gave me a little bit of a chuckle. I love the fact that Blizzard pops little Easter eggs like that in pretty much everywhere. Now here on the Craftsman's Terrace, you'll find everything that you need for professions, and you will also find the cooking daily here in the Craftsman Terrace area, which, if you don't know, daily cooking and fishing quests are a great way to get just a little boost of extra experience, and they're really, really easy to do. Now, if you are a Night Elf player or you're exalted with the Night Elves, you can buy Night Sabers right over here. They're easy to spot. They are sleeping right here. These days, I'm pretty sure that you can get them in Stormwind as well because, you know, Teldrassil burned. Anyway, here we have the Cenarian Enclave. It is where you will find all the different trainers, which only matter if you're playing Classic, because obviously the going to your class trainer is not really a thing that people have to worry about in retail anymore, but it's always good to know where they were. Now, there's not an apartment at the top of the Cenarian Enclave, but there are some cool rocks up here. So I was like, hey, let's go look at the cool rocks and the really neat almost Dreamcatcher. But underneath the Cenarian Enclave is something I never knew was there. So if you go all the way to the bottom of the Cenarian Enclave, there's a little almost cave system. It's where I guess the rogue trainers were. So most rogue players would probably have known that, but I never played a rogue back in the day, so I had not a clue. I'm guessing that this might be a old rogue class quest that you can pick up here. There's a book here that you can read. There's some training dummies. I just never knew that this place was underneath the Cenarian Enclave, and I thought it was really, really cool, and that I would share it with you. Also, if you are playing Classic, this is probably a spot you should know about, because it looks like there is a rogue class quest right there at the bottom. I just thought that was incredibly cool. Also, if you are still playing in Classic, I'm assuming that these guys would be in the same spot, but this is a spot where you could go to the poison supply trainer, because back in Classic, that is something you had to buy yourself, all of your poisons. I do like the quality of life changes that World of Warcraft has made. Not gonna lie, I am slightly a casual. Okay, I'm extremely casual. Now, there is the carbon copy of that tree that we saw, only grown to a much larger size. I actually was watching a WoW video the other day of top 10, I think it was banks or trees. I'm pretty sure it was WoW Krendor's video. And this was either number 1 or number 2 because, I mean, look at it. Who would not want to go to the bank inside of a bear that's holding an eagle? I know I would. Now over here, this is actually in the Craftsman's Terrace also. It's just kind of tucked away in a corner, and that was where you had the blacksmithing trainer. Now over here we have the Tradesman's Terrace. And that is where you are going to find the auction house. You're going to find some of your regular vendors, a few of those nice, easy to find things. And then you're right back over at the Tradesman's Terrace, more apartments, because goodness, we do love these apartments. I don't know. If Blizzard ever actually makes player housing, really all they would have to do is phase some of these houses and make them actually usable for players, and I would be just as happy as can be. Now, Estella there will give you the fishing daily quest, and there is a achievement that is tied to doing all of the fishing and cooking dailies in all of the major cities. So if you're an achievement hunter, don't forget to go back in time to Darnassus. Here at the Temple Gardens, it's honestly just mostly about aesthetics. This is such a beautiful area. There seems to be a group over here that are just kind of hanging out and well, probably not causing trouble, but they were very interesting to me. It was a mage trainer and just a random dwarf hanging out, having a conversation. Not sure what's up with that, but you know, it is what it is, I guess. Now, these days, pretty much everybody travels by portal. We don't worry as much about boats and flight points. I feel like everybody is all about that instant travel. And in the Temple of the Moon, where we're going to next, is a couple of portals that I'm sure everybody knows about, but if you didn't, well then I'll show them to you. Also, I had to come over to this side of the Temple of the Moon to see if anybody was hanging out over here. There wasn't, but you know, again, this kind of just looks like a really good picnic spot. I can't help it. Every time I'm in World of Warcraft, I'm like, where would I hang out if I somehow were magically transported inside the game? And I always seem to find a lot of really good spots. But I promised portals, and portals we have. Now you have a portal right here. The first portal is to Hellfire Peninsula, which will take you to the Dark Portal, and the second portal will take you straight to the Exodore. There's also some old trainers around, the Priest Trainer, the Paladin Trainer, things like that, and a beautiful picture of, well, not picture, statue. I don't know if that's supposed to be a representation of Elune, or if that is just a regular Night Elf priestess holding up the vessel for Elune to bless. Good question. I don't have the answer to it. But speaking of priestesses, up here at the top of the Temple of the Moon, you will find the co-leaders of the Night Elf people. which is Tyrande Whisperwind and her husband Malfurion Stormrage. They were much more peaceful back in the day. This is definitely before Tyrande went all Night Warrior on us. And it was after they finally got married. It took Tyrande about 3/4 of a lifetime to nail down the whole getting married to Malfurion, but she finally did it, just in time for the tree to burn. Anyway, the normal way in and out of Darnassus is through this beautiful portal. Just to the right of the portal, you will see a flight point and the Darnassus Quartermaster and the Gilnean Quartermaster. So if you are looking for tabards or cloaks, that is where you'd find them. Now we're just going to really quick check out the docks. At the end of the dock that used to have a boat that came in, we now have a portal to Stormwind.
Hello.
You know, you can talk to her and she'll say, unfortunately, the ship is currently under repairs, but we have a portal for you. And the other dock, the all-important other dock, which along the way, don't forget to stop at Nessa Shadowsong. She will sell you the Slitherskin mackerel and rainbow fin albacore recipe. Can't remember which one, but one of them is exclusive to the Night Elves. But at the end of this dock is the portal to our next location that we will be heading to next week. Next week, we are going to head off and visit Azure Mist and possibly Blood Mist Isle. Probably going to do a video for each of the isles, but I haven't made up my mind yet. I'll just have to see how many cool things I can find on each island and see if they each will get their own video or if I'm just going to have to combine them. But yeah, that is about it. If you know of any fun facts about Teldrassil or any of the areas around it, if I missed anything, drop it in the comments down below. I do always actually like learning about these things. But until next week, from me and Beryl, have an awesome, awesome day. Say goodbye, Beryl. Beryl says goodbye.